and welcome to the first ever episode of the Chrysalis Conversations. I want all of these conversations to be around transformation, just like my podcast, but there is a specific difference. These ones are going to be tied into my Facebook group and the people who message me asking me questions. I have some beautiful people who have reached out and they ask really incredible questions that I know can help other people. So that is the purpose for this and the theme to it and what I'm going to be doing going forward. Each week in my Facebook group, I will be putting a question up. Is there anyone that is wanting to have anything discussed? And you can either message me privately or put it in the comments section, and I will pick out questions to choose from, to talk about, to answer, that I think is going to be the most helpful for everybody. So this first episode and this first conversation comes from a beautiful lady who was doing my course, Stop the People Pleasing. Now, I'm a reformed people pleaser, and I have helped many people who get really stuck in the toxic cycles of people pleasing. And she very vulnerably shared, and she's gave my permission to discuss this with no names or anything, so not being indiscreet, but she came to me and she said, I can't seem to stop wanting like some kind of validation and expression of acknowledgement for everything that they do. So what I mean by that, she gave the example of she ends up doing all these things for friends and family members and people in her workplace. And then she builds up this expectation as she's getting drained, as she's doing all these things. She's like, at least they're going to be thankful for all the work that I'm putting in. And then they don't acknowledge all the effort. And she gets kind of crushed and despondent and then quite self-negative towards herself. Why do we keep doing this? And I wanted to really highlight how common this is. I went through it myself, and it's a very sneaky way that our saboteur helps us to focus in on this one aspect more than actually doing the hard work, which is actually facing the fact that we need to start saying no to people. Just like with any kind of abusive behavior or training or grooming, and we let ourselves get into any form of a bad habit, quite often we chase those good feelings. So when somebody does acknowledge all the hard work that we're doing, you can do 100 things for 100 different people, and you let yourself get drained and drained and drained and drained. And then that 100th person, after 99 people just taking from you, and then that 100th person, oh, thanks so much, Jess, you're just such a lifesaver, you're amazing. And you get this huge endorphin hit and you're like, oh my God, yes. So when we go forward with the habit, we are chasing that, like, oh, that acknowledgement. But you have to also resign yourself to the bigger picture that most of the time you're not going to get it. And that's going to lead to bitterness and resentment. But if you get stuck in being bitter and kind of resenting the fact that they're not giving you any acknowledgement for all the things that you're doing, then you lose the actual true essence of the entire question. And the entire question should be this: do I really want to be doing these things for these people? When I was at the height of my people pleasing, I got so bad that I almost like deliberately hurt myself and abused myself by offering to do things when I knew I did not have the time. I really, really didn't want to. And I had this weird expectation that the people would say no, but think thank you for offering. And I'd be shocked that they actually take me up on the offer. Like I'd say to friends, do you want me to drive you to such and such? Or do you want me to pick up such and such? And I would offer. I got into such of the habit of like constantly having to do things for people that I'd gone beyond people asking me to do things and me saying yes to just having to offer. And then a part of me was praying that someone would finally say no. But there was zero accountability on my behalf. There was zero attempts for me to say no. There was zero attempts for me to stop offering. And it was so hard when I had to stop. It was so hard to train myself to systematically start saying no. But do you know what was the hardest part during this process was like not even training myself to say no and the awkwardness and the potential rejections and like, oh my God, what if I offend that person and all those stories. In honesty, the hardest thing was taking those few seconds to tap in and actually ask, hey, Jess, do you really want to do this? Because I wouldn't give myself the time to check in. I wouldn't give myself any self-analysis. I did not have any boundaries. I didn't even know, what it was like to have healthy boundaries at that stage. So if you find yourself kind of getting really a bit bitter that nobody's acknowledging all the work that you're doing for them, and that leaves you to, having that irritation, what you have done is you've set up a patterning of expectation, which is part of your child archetype, but it's very much the saboteur being sneaky. And you're like, oh, well, if somebody did these things for me, I would be so grateful. So you set up an example based, like an expectation based upon your own self. Now, let's look at some situations from the flip side. And this is always really interesting, and I really highly recommend it. Look at the people that you people please with. Friends, family members, bosses, or colleagues. Now, let's take the workplace. If you're in the workplace and your boss knows that you're going to say yes to no matter what, they're not even going to bother asking somebody else. They're just going to ask you first. So in your mind, you're just like, oh my God, he always asks me first and I always have to do it. And I feel this compulsion to be reliable and I'm being the good girl, good boy and doing this. And in all honesty, if you said no to the boss, he'd be just like, oh, okay, can't do that. And they'd just go to the next person. Most of the time, they're not going to hound you to do it. They're just they've got a list of tasks and they need to find somebody to do it. Now, in brackets or full stop and put in a little exception here. You will have some really malicious, malignant, narcissistic people who are going to specifically target you to do such and such and such and such over and over and all those kinds of things. But brutal honesty, you need to be accountable. If you stay in a situation like that, then you have to take accountability of the fact that you're in that situation. And I know you can say, oh, that's so easy to say, Jess, but anybody that's in any form of an abusive situation has to come to that moment in themselves to leave, whether it's a relationship, a family, a social situation, or a workplace. No one else can do it for you. No one. And you can't just sit there and constantly say, like, these people are doing these things, and you don't take any form of transformational undertakings. You don't try and leave. You don't try and look for another job. You don't try and find different friends. You don't try and cut off family members that are toxic. You don't try and do courses and self-help and anything that is going to help you to become more empowered. And I know people who are able to build up their self-esteem to the place where they can deal with extremely narcissistic people, and they've done all the work on themselves, and the narcissistic people will just kind of bounce off their force field now. And then I know other people that have just gone completely cold turkey and cut off all the narcissists and are no longer having that drama. I know people who've been in incredibly abusive situations, and there's nothing anyone can do except be there and be their cheerleader and say, I know that you can do this, and then they leave themselves. There is nobody that can stop you from people pleasing, draining your energy, affecting your health, but you, full stop. It ends with you. It's at your footsteps. It's at your feet. So I completely empathize, 1,000%, with wanting to have acknowledgement for all that you're doing. But that if you're going to wait around for that, you're going to be waiting around forever. And you're going to get hooked into that desire for that 100th person to give you those endorphins hit so that you stay people pleasing. But life is far too short. Life is way, 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 way too short for you to be doing everything for everyone, to be driven to be the bestest of friends, the bestest of mothers, the bestest of sisters, the bestest of daughters, the best in the workplace. I'm the most reliable, I can do this. And in the end, you've got no time for yourself. Quite often, your family does end up suffering, or your house is constantly feeling like it's scattered or a war zone. And there's 1,000 consequences for you to not actually stop giving away your precious time and energy to people. So I wanted you to see with this conversation how we can actually get stuck waiting and waiting and waiting for that 100th person to acknowledge how awesome we are and all the stuff that we do for them. And we wait 99 people to get to that 100th, and then they give us the strength to just keep on people pleasing, and we'll go through another 90 people before we'll get to that 200th person, and they're like, oh my gosh, somebody cares. And you get so addicted to the feeling of acknowledgement for all the stuff that you're doing, and you forget, hang on, I wasted 18 months of my life and only 2 people have acknowledged how awesome I am. Are you willing to pay that price? I am a reformed people pleaser, and I am a reformed martyr. I just constantly gave. And it's really hard because if you're a genuinely nice person and a genuinely good person and you really love doing things for people, you can really get trapped into falling into this pattern and activating the shapeshifter archetype and people pleasing and people pleasing and people pleasing. So I hope this has helped. I hope that you can really identify with this, and I'd love to hear in the comments below whether or not you've gone through the similar thing, or if you know of other people who are going through it. Do you have friends or family members that are people pleasers? And have you seen this exact same patterning unfolding within them? I always love to hear people's feedback, and I hope this has truly helped. I will be posting some answers to more questions next Thursday. Bye for now. Oh, and in the comment below, in the description below, I'll put the link for, I have a free webinar about the costs on your mind, body, and soul of people pleasing. And there's some really interesting patterns that I have seen that has emerged in people's health if they do not address this. So I thought I'll pop that down there and you can watch that as well. Much love, and I'll see you next week. Bye for now.